Hello, Spark fans. Welcome back to Advancing Spark, where today I am having a Unity Catalog Day. More specifically, I'm starting from scratch. I'm building Unity Catalog for the enterprise user in an existing tenant. So I've got some workspaces. I don't have UC enabled. I'm going to show how you first enable UC, what you need a global AD admin for, how I then create a metastore and associate it to my workspaces, how I then think about creating catalogs across dev, test, and prod, but not allowing prod to see my dev catalogs and vice versa. And when I've got all that set up, you should be in a good place to then start using Unity Catalog and get all of the benefits and all of the new things and all the things that have been announced on the roadmap, and you'll be good place for the future. That's the plan. As always, if you're new around here, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're after some Spark training, don't forget we do have the Teachable platform where there is a 10% Spark fans discount. Do check that out. And yeah, let's go and have a look at what we're going to be doing. So, this is our most requested video of recent dates. So we're going to recap what we're going to do. We've currently got 2 workspaces set up. So I've got my Advancing Production account. And I've got my old scrappy demo account, which is my Advancing Databricks. So I've got those 2 currently set up. That is it. I'm going to go in, I'm going to try and access the account console. I'll show you what happens if you do not currently have access to the account console. And it's really confusing because it looks like it's working, but it's not working. And I'll show you what that currently looks like. I'll then show you what we need to do as our global AD admin. And essentially, we're just going to log in. We go to the account console once, either via the button press or via the URL directly. And we delegate access to our user. We say, well, that person's got admin access. That is it. That is the entirety that our global AD admin has to do to get things set up in the first place. Then I'm going to log back in as myself. I'm going to create a metastore. I'm going to associate that metastore to an existing lake. And then I'm going to link that metastore to both of my workspaces. Now, at that point, both of my workspaces are then Unity enabled. We can then start doing things inside Unity Catalog. We can start playing around to our heart's content. Now, what we need to see then is actually just creating a catalog in dev, and creating a catalog in prod, and then locking them, binding those catalogs to workspaces so that they cannot see each other, so that we have good environmental segregation. That's the plan. That's what we're about to go and build. So, yeah, easy. Let's have a go. Okay, so first things first. I'm logged into the Azure portal. I'm in my own personal tenant, and I'm logged in as my AA account. Now, my Advancing Analytics account does not have full global AD admin, so it's not going to work. We're going to need some help here. But let's just see what it looks like first, because it's so confusing. I've had people speak to me and say, yeah, the account console, I've got access to it, because I can see a list of workspaces. I'm like, great, yeah. When you log into the account console, you see a list of workspaces. But also, if you don't have access, you see a list of workspaces, which is really confusing. So if I go as me and click on Manage Account, this is me without access to the account console. I get this thing. I get a workspace selector. And it essentially sends me back to a workspace. So I can get like trapped in a never-ending spiral of depression going around going, why can't I get to the account console? It just sends me back to my workspace. That is what it looks like if you do not have access to the account console. So if you don't see anything going down the left, you don't see anything else here. I can see Databricks account. I'm close. But I don't have access, therefore I just get the workspace selector. So I cannot do anything there. Don't worry if you just see that. That means you need someone with access to the Databricks account to provision you access to the account console. If you've never done that before, it has to be a global AD admin. This is the only piece that we need a global AD admin for. So if I switch the browser over, so I've got me logged in as a personal account here, so I can go and just follow those same steps. So I can dive into my workspace. I can click Manage Account. I can also just go directly to accounts.azuredatabricks.net. But you can see I have access. I didn't go through that workspace selector. Instead, it just sent me directly into the accounts console. So I could never have seen Databricks before, but if I am the global AD admin for this tenant, I can go to accounts.azuredatabricks.net and I will have access. I can see everything inside here. So I can come in, I can see my list of workspaces, not the same list of workspaces in the selector, the actual account console list of workspaces. But the only thing that our global AD admin needs to do is go to user management and delegate permission to whoever's going to manage Databricks on the company's behalf. So in this case, I've got my AA account. I can go to my advancing analytics account, go into roles, and say, they are now an account admin. And that is it. That is me as the global AD admin done. So if you've been fighting to say we need to get Unity Catalog enabled, and then you've been told you're not allowed, the global AD admin's got too much stuff to do, they can't be involved in all this stuff, show them that. That is all they have to do, is log into the account console at accounts.azuredatabricks.net and delegate access to somebody, one person, to say you're an admin. That is it. I can now close that away. I no longer need to use that screen. That is all my usage done, my global AD admin. I can come back here and click on manage account. Now I might need to refresh this. When you've just set someone as an AD, it gets a little bit confused. There you go. So it thinks I still don't have access. If I hit refresh, it'll give me that same workspace selector. I can see I've now got my different panels on the side. I can now go and actually use it. I do now have access under my AA account. I can go and do whatever I want inside the account console because I'm now an account admin. Cool. Done. Easy. Delegated access. I am now set up to use Unity Catalog in my organization. That's the first hoop has been jumped through. That's a lot easier than you think, right? So I can see my various different workspaces. I can go and manage my workspaces from here. So I could, for example, go and manage permissions. I've not set up federation here. But I can see various different things from there. The main thing I want to do is under data. I want to be able to actually go and manage my metadata via Unity Catalog. So I need to create a metastore. So I don't have one currently. If I go look at my workspaces, they're all UK South. So I'm going to create a UK South metastore. And I'm going to need a data lake that I can also associate to this metastore. So I create a metastore. What's it going to be called? I'm going to call my SAW UK South metastore. Sure. Going to put it in UK South. Make sense? And then I need these two things. So I need the Gen2 path. And I need an access connector ID. So essentially what it is I need some way of connecting into a lake. Now the way we do that these days with Databricks is via this thing, an access connector for Azure Databricks. So we'll need to set that up. So first things first, I need my lake. So I've got my DB lake sitting here. And inside my lake, I've created just an empty container called metastore. Don't have anything else in there. It's just my metastore sat there ready to use. So metastore at my DFS endpoint. So I've got my endpoint down here in my data lake storage. The DB lake dfs.core.windows.net is what it needs. We can see in there it's looking for container name at storage account name. So it's actually looking for metastore at dblake.dfs.core.windows.net. So that's good. That's happy. That's got a lake path, but it needs access to that lake path. So we need to create that access connector thing. So because Databricks, whilst it is a first-party citizen inside of Azure, it doesn't create its own managed identity. You need to create one for it. So I've got the link there. I can go and create a resource. So it's a Databricks resource. And then I'm not using straight Databricks. Instead, I've got this access connector for Azure Databricks. I want to go and create one of those, please. Yes, please. Going to create it. It's going to go in my production workspace, sure. It's going to be my UK South metastore ID. Sure. And we're going to need to remember that name because we'll give that name access to various things. And it's going to go in UK South. And that's all I need to do. There's other tags and normal things I can do with it. Which is to go off, create that thing, and then we need to give that access to my lake. So we need two things. One, the blob storage contributor RBAC role on the lake itself. And it's going to need ACL access to the actual container. Okay, so I've got my thing created. I need to go to my DB lake. I need to go firstly into access control and say I'm going to add a new role assignment. Now the role assignment is my blob storage. So my blob storage data contributor, that one that we have to use all the time when we're using ADLS. So blob storage blob data contributor. Add a member. So it's a managed identity. So let's see what we've got in here. It's going to be one of my access connector for Databricks identities. And I can see that UK South metastore ID is there. Cool. Gonna select that, review it and assign it. view and assign, and there we go. So that's step one. I've created a managed identity, and I've given it access to the lake. It also needs access to the container. So I'm going to dive into the container here. I've got my metastore container. I'm going to jump into my managed ACLs. I'm just going to make sure it's got the relevant access it needs. I'm going to add a new principal in here. Enterprise application. That's going to be all the way down. I call it UK South Metastore ID. I just need to make sure that has read and write access to everything in my metastore, and that's absolutely fine. I'm also going to give it default, just to make entirely sure that flows down through everything. Add it into UK South. Yes, tick. Going to give it access to everything it needs. So we've got both sides, active permissions, default permissions for my brand new connector. And click save. There, that should be everything I actually need. So underneath my lake, underneath the container I'm trying to access into, that's the thing I'm going to have to access. Not going to anything currently. Once I've set up my metastore, we'll suddenly see metadata in there. So the final thing it's asking for is just the name of that managed identity, but as the form of an Azure resource. So if I dive into that connector, dive into here, I've got that resource ID sitting over there. That's what it wants. So I can give it that resource ID. That's going to connect as that resource ID into my subscription. And then do a little validation. So it's going to try and connect via that managed connection into my metastore and say, do I have access? Can I read data? Can I delete data? Can I do everything? It'll give you a little text box. It'll tell you if it doesn't work, if it doesn't have the right permissions. We can see in this case, it had the right permissions. So that has happily worked. And I can say, I want my advancing Databricks and advancing production to be added to this metastore. Click assign, enable Unity Catalog. That's a good sign. Congratulations, you have enabled UC. So now if I just take a step back, if I go onto my data tab, I can see I have a metastore deployed. See, I've got a path to where it's going to be in the lake. It's going to have an ID, so there's a new folder in my lake that will have some metadata created as of today. I can dig into that metastore, look on the workspaces, and see that it's associated to 2 different workspaces currently. Great. Okay, that's a great step. I'm going to have to nip over here and start a cluster. We're going to have to create a catalog in a second. But that is the very first step. Well, not the first step, that's just all of the steps. But essentially, in order to get that foundation, in order to enable Unity Catalog and have this whole workspace act differently, now if I go to data, I see my old legacy metastore, but I can also see essentially anything that's going to live inside of my Unity Catalog. I can see that that is now linked to a metastore. This is a Unity Catalog enabled workspace now. Now, I might actually cheat, rather than just waiting for that compute catalog to set up. While we're waiting, I'll show you what it looks like when you assign it in another different environment. If I just nip over to my main environment, we'll be playing around with Unity. If I grab an existing one, I can show you what it looks like. So essentially, we've got a new button that lives inside the Data Explorer now. If I go into data, you can see a load of different catalogs I've got created at the Unity catalog level. And I can grab a given catalog. And I've now got this new tab. I've got a new workspaces tab. So you can see I've actually locked this workspace down. So if I jump on a different one, if I jump on my play category, catalog, by default, catalogs are set up to have access to everything. All workspaces can see that catalog regardless of which workspace they're in. If I want to change that, I can do it through the UI. I can go, nope, that's no longer true. See at the top, my catalog has been changed to isolation mode isolated. So it's either all completely open or it's isolated. So in this case, this catalog is now locked and cannot be accessed by any workspace. I need to assign some workspaces to it. In this case, the workspace I'm in, I want to make sure that can actually see that catalog. I click assign. That's now locked that playcat down just to this workspace. Actually, it's the same with that AdventureWorks one. They are both locked in just to this workspace. If I go to another workspace on the same metastore, which we have to see, I've got another one called another DBX workspace. I just dive out here and go to my other workspace. What I'll actually see in the Explorer, despite the fact that I've got access to it, I have access to this other catalog, but it's blocked at the workspace level. So I can jump into data. And I can actually see, look, there's 2 workspaces, well, there's 2 catalogs in my workspace which are not allowed. Users cannot access this catalog. They are not allowed to access this catalog from this workspace. So if you have admin access, you'll still see them. You'll see them in the list, but you won't be able to query them. And when you're looking in your Query Explorer and DB SQL, all that kind of stuff, you won't see that catalog because this workspace cannot access it. It's only if you go in there as an admin, you'd actually see those things marked as not allowed to be seen here. So that's what we need to do. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a catalog and then say, lock that catalog down. Do not allow anyone to use that catalog. And that's essentially it. That's the main step that we need to do. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I can do this without my compute turned on, but I think kind of from that, you get an idea of what we need to do. We need to log in to our workspace once the compute's actually set up and running. We need to create two catalogs, dev and prod. Now, in actuality, we'd probably have it based around business area, probably around lake area. So I might have dev bronze, dev silver, dev gold, and then prod bronze, prod silver, prod gold, etc. And then I can go and create things from there. Oh, there we go. I can actually go and create things now. Nicely, that's good. I'm going to create my dev underscore bronze. I can choose, should it have a storage location? Now, I can only do that if I've set up an external storage location. So, yeah, we've done other videos about external tables. You'll need to follow that if you want it stored in your own lake. And you do. Honestly, you want each of your environments should have its own lake set up. But I've got a catalog set up now. I can say, well, this catalog is not allowed to be seen from the other workspaces. This is only allowed to be seen from my dev area. And I can do everything else here, actually. I can kind of, inside my catalogs, I can create on the other side and say, well, my dev, my prod, bronze, PRD, 3-letter, naming consistencies, come on. I'm going to create that on this side. I'm going to say my prod bronze is only allowed to be seen, turn off all workspace access, assign it to my production workspace, and there we go. So I can see I'm not allowed to use my prod bronze here. I am allowed to use my dev bronze. If I switch over, go into my other one, go into my production workspace, open that up, log in as me. So the same user logging into two different workspaces can see a different subset of catalogs because we've locked them down to individual workspaces. That's how it should work. Logging on is taking a moment. I think this might be the first time I've actually accessed this whole workspace, so it's taking a moment to figure out what's going on. And that's how we should be thinking about things. That's how we should be thinking about managing our catalogs across things. There we go. In my prod environment, I can only see my prod catalogs and anything that came with Unity catalog setup. In my dev environment, I can see my dev catalogs. I can't see my prod ones. Follow that example and get your entire environment set up. So each individual grouping of catalogs that needs to go to a certain workspace should have something in the name of the catalog so you can identify it. Whether that is to do with environment, dev, test, prod, etc. Whether that's to do with business area. Maybe you got sales and marketing and CRM and field operations, whatever it happens to be. And it might be a combination of those. So it could be dev, bronze for HR. And production, silver for, I don't know, someone else, sales. Build whatever you need to have inside that linking of these catalogs to workspaces should be in your catalog name so you can design how that works. Now, I've done that manually. So I've gone in and I've used the GUI, I've used the UI to create catalogs, to assign catalogs to a given workspace, and to do the management of those things. Now, you don't have to. There is an API. So I'm kind of assuming because the majority of the catalogs that we create are data-driven, so I'll have a load of metadata that determines the tables and schemas, catalogs that should be created anyway, so we can just do an API call after we've created the catalog to automatically assign it to a given workspace. We can automate that flow. But doesn't matter whether you do it through the UI, whether you do it automatically, whether you build some engineering around it. Those are the steps you should be following. Get your account console set up. You probably need a global AD admin. Create a metastore, link it to a lake. You'll need an access connector for Databricks to get that authentication working. Assign your metastore to some workspaces, create some catalogs, and then associate those catalogs and bind them to the workspaces that are allowed to see it. Once you've done that, you are fully UC enabled, can get all of the benefits, and you'll have a good time. Oh, just on 20 minutes. See, it's not that hard. Easy. All right, so that is all I wanted to take you through today. Now, there are other facets. There are other things you need to think about. So when managing user access and what AD groups have access to those workspaces, you can do that through Unity Catalog, but you do need to set up SCIM. And that's another thing that's going to involve Active Directory, going to involve having someone create that SCIM connector and push AD users and groups to the account console. And then when you enable identity federation, you can then, from the account console, say, well, that workspace has those users and groups. That workspace has those users and groups. And you can treat that account console as basically your central management hub for access across all of your workspaces. But you don't need to do it that way. That's not a blocker for you to start using UC. The steps we've gone through will get you to the point when you can start using it, even if you're doing user access manually for now, and then you can add automation in on the top of that further downfield. And then, yeah, we're going to see loads and loads of things. At the Databricks AI Summit, we saw all things like Lakehouse IQ and Lakehouse Federation and all these announcements that are all Unity Catalog based. You need UC. You should be using Unity Catalog to reap all of the benefits that are coming down the line around Databricks and around Lakehouse management and all of that good stuff. So heavily recommend you follow those various different patterns and get that stuff set up. But yeah, as always, any questions, put them down in the comments, and if I see them and I'm not traveling somewhere, I'll try and respond. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for another video soon. Cheers.